Recruiting season is ramping up, and the hype around Nebraska is palpable as Matt Rhule is getting close to a top 15 class. However, this wasn't always the case for the Huskers. In today's video, we're going to rewind 3 years to the class of 2022 and revisit what many consider to be the worst recruiting class in Nebraska football history. I'm going to break down what exactly went wrong, who are some studs who still came out of that class for the Huskers, and then how this is impacting Nebraska football to this day. So really quick, before we dive into it, make sure to smash that like button if you're excited about the future of Nebraska football recruiting, along with subscribing to the channel. If you want to stay up to date with everything Nebraska football, Nebraska recruiting, Nebraska rumors, I have you covered daily talking Huskers on this channel, so hit that subscribe button. But without further ado, let's jump right into it, talking about Nebraska recruiting, and we're going back 3 years to the class of 2022. Now, this was at the end of the Scott Frost tenure, and at this point in time, he was failing to recruit at a high level. He wasn't taking it with much stride. He wasn't visiting many prospects, and because of that, we were ranked 41st in the country in all of recruiting rankings, the worst Nebraska's had since recruiting rankings even started on the internet. And looking at this class more in detail, we only had 3 4-star prospects. The rest were all 3 stars. And out of the 19 players committed, 7 of them are still on the team. Now, with that being said, let's dive deeper. Let's talk about some of these individual prospects, particularly the headline figures, and let's talk about if they boomed, if they busted, and what went along there. So let's just go to the quarterback position. I talk about this all the time. The quarterback position makes or breaks your class. And the signal caller that Scott Frost chose in the class of 2022 was Richard Torres, 3-star quarterback out of Texas. And when I was watching him on film about 3 years ago, he was an incredibly raw quarterback. He's 6'6", he has a cannon arm, but he was a pocket passer. And for that reason, it was incredibly risky for Nebraska to add him. You would need to be a great developer as a head coach, as a offensive coordinator to put him in the right situation for him to succeed. And obviously under Scott Frost, we did not have that. So we did not succeed. He was here for 1 season that ended up transferring going into 2023. And actually, looking at what he did, he transferred to the FCS levels to Incarnate Word, and he was balling out for them last year. He was 3rd-team All-FCS freshman team. He proved himself just as one of the best freshman quarterbacks in the country, period. And Richard Torres is going into this season as the unquestioned starter for them. So he's having a lot of success, but that's a bigger indicator of Nebraska in the past is the fact that even though we had talented raw prospects in Lincoln, Scott Frost just could not bring the best out of them. Now, with that being said, let's take it to some of the other options. Why this class was so bad? Because Scott Frost actually passed up on a couple really good quarterbacks. MJ Morris was a 4-star that Scott Frost was not interested in. He took Richard Torres over MJ Morris, and Morris turned out to be one of the best true freshman, sophomore quarterbacks in the country. He was originally at NC State. He transferred this offseason to Maryland, and he's going to play over there for the Terrapins this year. So MJ Morris, he was actually Nebraska lean. He wanted to be a Cornhusker, and Scott Frost fumbled that one. Another guy that the Cornhuskers were interested in at the time was a guy by the name of AJ Bianco. He was on campus. He ended up committing to Nevada, and he played for them last year a couple times. He's going to start for them this year as well. So again, the common theme from the first bit that I just gave you, Scott Frost did not know how to develop, and he passed up on better recruits for guys who are raw that he just did not know how to use. So let's take it to the 4-star prospect. Richard Torres was a 3-star, but let's take it to some of the best players that Nebraska landed on paper, and let's see how they fared. So the number 1 prospect that Nebraska landed in the class of 2022 was 4-star running back A.J. Allen. Now, A.J. Allen played as a true freshman. He lived up to the hype. He had 200 yards before an injury early in the year. And really, from my perspective, A.J. Allen is one of the most dynamic and talented running backs we've seen in Lincoln in a very long time. Now, when Matt Rhule got to Lincoln, A.J. Allen tweeted out that he was going to stay. That did not remain the case. He ended up transferring over to Miami, and he's playing a little bit there for the Hurricanes. He's expected to have a bigger role going into his junior campaign. But again, just another talented player who left. Another guy, Jaden Gold, was our 2nd highest recruit. Another 4-star player. He was originally a Penn State commit, then committed to Nebraska after an injury in his high school days. Did not play at all in his true freshman campaign. Then left to go to Syracuse to follow his past secondary coach, Travis Fisher. And he was one of the best standouts on the defense for the Orange this year. Played in every single game, started a couple as well. And then last but not least, let's take it to the last 4-star we got in this class, and this is Janarian Bonner. So unlike the other two, Janarian Bonner still on the squad for Nebraska, but his career has been a hot mess. When Matt Rhule got here, he made a crucial mistake. He moved Janarian Bonner from wide receiver, which is his true position. He moved him to tight end. That was never going to work. Matt Rhule understood that and then moved him to fullback. That was never going to work. And then Matt Rhule finally, understood, hey, I made some mistakes. We're going to move him back to wide receiver this offseason. And Janarian Bonner, actually, he was balling out in the spring game. Obviously made that big touchdown catch. I think first touchdown catch of Dylan Raiola's passing career. So Janarian Bonner, he has a future for Nebraska, but his career's been a mess so far. Hopefully he can figure it out. But again, those are the only 4 stars that Nebraska landed, 2 of which are gone and balling out elsewhere, and one of which has really had a messy start to his career, but hopefully he figures it out in year 3. Now, let's take into some of the other big misses that Nebraska had in this recruiting class. Dakotas Crawford, one of the most hyped up commits Nebraska's had in the last half decade. Of course, with the name, he was a past LSU commit. Did not play at all. Transferred over to Louisiana Tech, did not play there. Ernest Hausman was very hyped up out of Columbus. He did play for Nebraska. He was one of the best standout players, but once again, when Scott Frost left, Matt Rhule, I guess, could not build that relationship with Ernest Hausman. He decided, hey, I'm going to go elsewhere. He went over to Michigan. He won a national title as one of the best players on their defense. Victor Jones was a very hyped up wide receiver commit. Speedster guy, ended up transferring once again after his first year is at Liberty, and he's doing nothing. And then last but not least, Chase Androff, tight end from Minnesota. That was just a general bad get by Scott Frost, a guy who really I didn't think that had any potential, was proved to be right. He's not playing football for Nebraska anymore. So listen, Nebraska had a lot of misses. And when they did have hits, they're already gone from the program. They transferred out. Now, this class in particular is a result of 3 things. 1, poor results on the field. When you lose football games consistently with the same head coach, you cannot recruit at a high level. It's impossible. Okay? The reason why Matt Rhule is recruiting at a high level right now, despite only winning 5 games last year, is because he's still a new head coach. Now, if Matt Rhule consistently wins 4 games for the next couple years, he will not recruit a high level. Okay, Scott Frost learned that. So that's why it's so important for Matt Rhule to win this year and next year. Number 2, the reason why we had this bad of a class was the lack of recruiting discipline. Scott Frost was not a great recruiter, and it showed. And last but not least, Scott Frost was fired. And when you're fired, a lot of those guys jump ship, whether they were good or not. And there is a reason why this was one of the worst classes in Nebraska history. But there's always a silver lining. Let's get to some of the studs out of this class. Even though it was one of the worst, if not the worst in Nebraska football history, there's still some guys who are still making plays for the Huskers. And what's ironic about this is that this was nothing that Scott Frost did. The reason why these players are good is not because of Scott Frost. It's actually because of Matt Rhule. All 4 of these players I'm about to mention who are balling out for the Huskers were at the bottom of the recruiting rankings for Nebraska. All of these guys were low 3 stars. One of them was even a 2-star prospect, and every single one of them was developed with Matt Rhule under 1 year, and they're projected to start in 2024. So let's get to the first guy. Emmett Johnson was a low 3-star prospect, did not play under Scott Frost, and Matt Rhule got here, developed him right away, and he's going to be unquestionable the running back 1 in 2024. Malcolm Hartzog, another guy, limited offers in high school. Played as a true freshman. I will give credit to Travis Fisher and Scott Frost there, but he's looking to have a really, really big year in 2024, officially moved to safety. So, and again, another guy who's a low 3-star. Deshaun Singleton, JUCO prospect, recently played last year, just a boom type of guy at safety. Again, he will lay the boom on you, lay a big hit on you if you're coming down the middle. He's projected to have a big year coming off of injury. And then Justin Evans Jenkins going to start at guard this year. I project him to. Was only a 2-star prospect out of his high school and played so well this year thanks to Donovan Raiola, thanks to Matt Rhule. So again, there's always a silver lining. In every single one of those guys I just mentioned are guys with barely no offers, barely no stars. And Matt Rhule, within 1 year with Nebraska, took a class that was awful, and he took guys who were dust and turn them into diamonds, and that's the silver lining. And that's how this class is still impacting Nebraska to this day. Yes, out of the 19 commits we got in that class, 7 are still at the program. But a lot of the guys I just mentioned are making plays. Again, Emmett Johnson, Malcolm Hartzog, Deshaun Singleton, Justin Evans-Jenkins, Janarian Bonner, like I mentioned before. Those are 5 of the 7. All those guys are playing well. So with that being said, we are still in a good spot in the class 2022, and that's thanks to Matt Rhule. I'm going to tell you this one thing. Okay, this was undoubtedly an awful class. Matt Rhule will make sure this never happens again, because I'm going to tell you one thing. Matt Rhule is not going to lose as many football games as Scott Frost did. He's never going to have a lack of recruiting discipline like Scott Frost did. And at the end of the day, he's such a great developer where even if he lands 3-star prospects, 2-star prospects, he's going to make them good. And that's what we're getting from Matt Rhule. So that was a little bit of an interesting video going back 2.5 years looking at that class of 2022. Just an awful class for Nebraska. Thanks to Scott Frost, Matt Rhule turned nothing into something, and hopefully we'll never have anything like that again. So let me know down below, what was your main takeaway from the class of 2022? Maybe somebody who busted that you thought would have boomed. Maybe somebody who is really doing well that you did not expect to do well. Let me know that down below in the comment section below. And hey, if you made this far in the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And as always, folks, go Big Red, go Matt Rhule, and see you in the next one.